The story may not be for kids. Please share to keep these stories alive. It's a story out of Japan. Seems like a memory to me. Once, long, long ago, there was a good general. He had fought long and hard in many wars for his emperor. And when the wars ended, he finally got to go home. Only upon arriving home, he found that his wife and daughters walked among the spirit world. So he built himself a small home far away from other people to live in solitude and what peace he could find. He lived there for some years. One day, soldiers appeared on his doorstep. As he came out of his door, anger was in his heart. "What are you doing here? Leave me alone." Sir, the drums of war have sounded again. The Emperor calls upon you to lead once more." "No, I refuse. I have killed enough for the Emperor. I will not kill anymore. I have given him everything. My life, my family, my very soul." "Sir, if you do not come and serve, many good young men will die, and the Emperor will see your refusal as a betrayal. I'm not sure what he will do. Let him take my life then. Is that what he wants for my service? Let him have it." He slammed the door in their faces. The young soldiers, not knowing what to do. "We will return in the morning, sir. Please, we need your help." Later that night, as the general paced the floor of his small dwelling, the ghosts of his wife and daughter showed up. "Father, there is still good you can do. Please, do not let your life end this way. Please, do us the honor." Even the dogs called in the background for him to once again take up his sword. His wife, "I love you. Please, do this service. For it is not about the war, winning the war for the Emperor. It is about the sons, the brothers, the fathers that you could serve, that could go home to their families as a result of your wisdom and your experience. Leave me alone." But as he tossed and turned that night, anger, pain, swelling through his body, he realized he must listen to his family. So when the soldiers showed up again that morning, once again he found himself in the regalia of his country, his hand on the hilt of his blade, as if it had never left. As he saddled his horse and rode off, his heart steeled in resolution that he would do what he could, but not for his emperor, not for his country, but for the children, the wives and mothers of these good men that rode beside him. 2 days later, he finds himself in the tent, listening to the generals bicker back and forth about what battle strategy would be best. Quietly, he unrolled his plans, and many of them scoffed at him, laughed at him. "General, you've been out of battle too long. This is a ridiculous plan. I don't see how we can even enact this. This isn't going to work." But one young general stood up, and he said, "Good sirs, I was raised on the stories of this great general here, and I know what he lost to be able to be here with us tonight, and I know what it took for him to show up and go into battle once again." Voices quieted. "Very well then." As the general walked amongst the men, listening to them laugh and drink, many of them never having seen battle before, his heart grew heavy, knowing what tomorrow would bring. Once again, he had to resolve his heart. He would do what he could. He would. The next day, as he stood on his horse atop the hill with the other leaders, protecting the Emperor, he watched as his orders were enacted and the young men go into battle. He heard from far away the shouts and screams as young men fell. He saw the battle give way, not to the way that his countrymen needed it to go. So against orders, he raced down the hill, unsheathing his blade and roaring, he moved into battle. It was like the ghosts of the past were with him, protecting him, guiding him, showing where to strike, knowing that he was simply dispatching these men to walk among the spirit world, but would do everything he could to spare their lives so they could once again love their women and hug their children. Sounds began to die down until there was no more time to swing his blade. As he stood on the battlefield, watching the results of war, a rich man's greed, he fought to keep the hate out of his heart and found himself losing until he felt a hand on his shoulder. He jumped at first, reaching again for his blade, only he saw a look of awe in this young soldier's face. "Thank you, grandfather. Thank you. I will see my wife again. Thank you." One by one, the soldiers came up, putting his hand on his shoulder, on his chest. The look of love and gratitude in their eyes brought tears to an old warrior's soul. As he stood on that battlefield looking up at the generals and the emperor on the hill, all hurt and hate faded, because he realized in that moment, as these young men gathered around him, praising him, thanking him, as he saw his wife and 2 daughters smiling at him from the field, he knew as his heart that all a man can do is what he can, and that will always be enough. I would ask that you send this story to our veterans. People go through things that we can't possibly imagine. We have to find within ourselves what we can do. We look around in the world, there's so much we can do nothing about. And when we allow anger and hate against those that caused it, the government, the elite, whatever it is, then that's what we put out. That's what eats into our lives. But when we focus on what we can do, whether that is a compliment to someone, $5 here and there, buying somebody's groceries at the grocery store, words of hope, words of faith, words of guidance, sharing your story of hope and survival, of change. This you can do. Small acts of recycling, using less water, picking up trash every time you go for a walk. The ripple effect of these acts, you have no idea where they might end. So lift your heads, friends, because it is not about winning the war. It is about choosing your battles. It is about doing what you can, finding joy in every small good change you can make. Much love, relatives. Go forth and do good in this world.